Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
Genuinely, once again, what I believe in. Focus on the things that are in your control. Whether the exam will happen or not, is that in your control? No, it's not in your control. Whether the center is going to be close to your house or not, it's not in your control. Okay? Please focus on whatever is in your control and do that to the best of your ability. Because by worrying about things which are not in your control, you are not going to move ahead at all. Okay, the only thing that you can do right now is assume that CAT is happening on 29th November. And if everything is normal, then what all do you need to do?
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Conversations in Quarantine. It's a very special episode for me because I get a unique chance to interview my teacher, and it's my great privilege and honor to welcome Parag sir today to our conversations. Hello, Parag sir, how are you doing?
All good, Ankit. Thank you so much for those kind words.
So, Parag sir has helped a few thousand students get into top business schools in India and the world. He used to run the very popular CPLC, which eventually merged with a company called MT Educare. Currently, Parag sir helps a lot of budding sports persons to advance in their career, get high quality training, financial help, and sponsors. And we'll talk about all these roles that he is playing in detail during this interview. I'm also very happy to tell everyone that he's kindly agreed to be part of a panel of mentors for helping students one-on-one with their career problems, and I think you should look forward to interacting with him. So we are in a strange time, although CAT is supposed to take place on 29 November. I'm not sure
Correct.
whether that will take place and necessarily happen because we don't know what will happen next month, what will happen in November. There is also a lot of confusion because a 3-hour exam has been reduced to a 2-hour
2 hour
exam.
exam.
Uh, I think that last happened some 15 years back, maybe when it was still paper pencil. But a lot of students are low because we get a lot of these queries. People also comment on the YouTube comments, of the various videos that we release, etc. And what would you tell a student who's preparing right now who has some amount of uncertainty connected to how the exam will take place, will have an issue with respect to whether it's going to be in a center that is near to his house or away, because you've seen what's happened with the IIT and the NEET exams,
Neat. Yeah.
right? So at this point of time, we are exactly 2 months away from the scheduled date. What would you tell your student at this point of time?
Whether it is this time or any other time, and in my experience, I have seen so often where students are feeling low or are upset or are worried and so on and so forth. And I experience the same thing at home with my daughter also, because with her sporting career and tournaments and performance driven and so on and so forth. Genuinely, once again, what I believe in. Focus on the things that are in your control. Whether the exam will happen or not, is that in your control? No, it's not in your control. Whether the center is going to be close to your house or not, it's not in your control. Okay, please focus on whatever is in your control and do that to the best of your ability. In fact, let me look at the positive of this time. You are at home, you have a lot of time to put in for your preparation. And something that I mentioned earlier, be ready to change with the changing environment, whether it is applicable to a person who is working, or to me as an entrepreneur, or to a student. Give it your best shot, do the best that you can at this time, and prepare yourself mentally to appear for the CAT on the 29th of November. To quote my example, even if CAT doesn't go well, okay, maybe you will do very well in another exam, and that will get you into a top B school anyways. I have gone through it, so I can tell you out of my personal experience of it.
Do you think this is a good time to do an MBA, because you might not enjoy campus life? What if the pandemic goes on for one more year? We don't know what is the economic situation going to be like in 2021. I mean, in 2021, 2022, we don't know whether companies are going to hire or no. So how do you solve this particular dilemma?
First of all, do you even need to do an MBA? And even in my CPLC times, I firmly believed in this, and I had always told students that it is not a compulsion that everyone has to do an MBA. Okay, so be very clear whether you really need to do an MBA or not. If you need to do an MBA, what is that reason which you need to do your MBA for, and which will eventually tell you what is the right time to do your MBA. Okay, is MBA a good qualification to have? Of course, it is a wonderful qualification to have. Will it upgrade your skills? Of course, it will upgrade your skills. Whether everyone needs that, I'm not too sure. Whether this is the right time to do it or not differs from person to person. It depends on what stage of life you are in, what role you are in, and it depends on a whole lot of things.
This question, which I'm sure you have uh, trained and maybe terrorized a lot of students with in the past, which is why MBA? Sir, why did you do your MBA?
Okay, very interesting. So it actually goes back to a little bit about my education background. So at home, I was always surrounded by teachers. My dad was a teacher, my mom was a teacher. So education was always given utmost importance at home. And right from my school times, I mean, I have focused a lot on my education, on studies. I don't know if things have changed out of my limited interaction of late with current students. I think the scenario is still the same what it used to be when I was a student, which is if you get good marks in the 10th standard, then you typically have to do science. If you don't, people think there is a problem. So I got good marks in 10th. I got into science. And if you get into science, there are only two meaningful careers, which are engineering and medical. And I hence got into engineering. I was not very sure if, I really wanted to make my career in the technology field, so to say. Organizing things, management kind of skills attracted me a lot. They came very naturally to me. So even after completing my engineering, I did take up a job in the engineering field, but it did not really give me that kind of happiness, satisfaction. And that's when I said that, I do need to get into a management kind of a career, and which is where after my engineering, I decided to pursue MBA.
So do you think that's an answer you would accept from a student if you are on the other side of the panel?
When I was training students for interviews, I always believed in one thing that, when you answer a question, try and be as truthful as possible, because that's the one answer that you can defend most easily when you are grilled. Having said that, Ankit, since you asked me this question, maybe if I was in a B school interview or some kind of an interview of that kind, maybe my answer would have been a little different from what I've given you right now. But it's the truth.
Great. Now, sir, you've trained so many hundreds of students, thousands of students actually with CAT. And the interesting thing is that you actually went to JBIMS, which is, of course, one of India's top B schools, but it does not take the CAT route in the same proportion that it probably looks at the state and level entrance exams. So, sir, one is, what was your experience with the CAT? And secondly, how did you manage to get into JBIMS?
So my experience with the CAT was very interesting, actually. Like everyone does, I was also preparing, slogging for it, actually, doing very well in the mock exams. Out of my experience, I think I always told my students, out of my experience, something that you should never forget, which is on the last day. Finally, what counts is what happens on the last day. I mean, your mock exams are finally mock, right? So on the last day, what happened is my center also happened to be the venue for a wedding. And while I was writing the exam, there was a wedding going on, and I did not do well in the CAT because I could not manage the last day, because I could not concentrate with all the music and so on and so forth. I messed up my CAT. But I'll tell you something, my slogging for the CAT helped me tremendously when I appeared for the CET. And I did very, very well in the CET. I did well in the exam. I cracked the interview also. I did well in the GD also, and which is where I managed to get into JBIMS, pretty easily actually because of my written test score.
So then, sir, how did you end up becoming a teacher? That I think is the most interesting bit for me because I have seen you up and close as a teacher. You also taught me, and the passion and the energy that you bring to your teaching is truly special. So, how did you discover that side of yourself?
While I was doing my MBA, uh, there were a few subjects where I used to help out a lot of my batchmates. Okay. Even then, when I was helping out my friends or my batchmates, I would enjoy that. And I kind of feel, and my batchmates also tell me that I did that pretty well. After my MBA, even while I was working in, whichever corporate that I was working in, somewhere at the back of my mind, I had this drive to do something on my own, an entrepreneurial kind of a drive. But that whole, if I can use the word kida of doing something on your own, it was still kind of, eating me up. And as I mentioned earlier, I come from a background of education. My parents have been into education. So, somewhere then, when I was kind of deciding to move out of a traditional corporate career, somewhere there I thought, why not education? But somewhere again, I mean, that kida comes back of doing something on my own. And it was in December 2002 where I actually decided to take the plunge. And having got almost like 3 years of experience of having trained students in a visiting faculty role for CAT and CET and other exams, I decided to take the plunge and I launched CPLC at that time in December 2002. And that's how I got into MBA entrance training and as an entrepreneur.
So, sir, tell us about the time when you were running CPLC. Of course, it was a physical classroom,
Yes,
and I think the USP that CPLC had was that you were giving personalized coaching to people in a time when
correct.
there were other people who were running large
Yeah,
mass shops.
yeah.
What are the most memorable few experiences that you can tell us about your entrepreneurial journey?
So when I started, as I told you in December 2002, when I started in my first year, my total strength of students that I was training was 35. Okay, and I came out of that experience as a visiting faculty in one of the top MBA coaching institutes, where, as you mentioned, there were very large batch sizes. And in my teaching experience there also, I realized that students who were very comfortable. I mean, I have always taught math, so there are only two emotions for math that anyone can have. You either love it or you hate it. There is nothing in between, is my experience over the last more than 20 years now. So when students were comfortable with math, the batch size did not really matter because they were comfortable, they were quick, they would manage things on their own. But the real students who needed that support of a teacher in a classroom were the ones who maybe were not so comfortable, but unfortunately they would get lost in that large batch size. And which is where, when I launched CPLC also, the whole thought was that we will keep the batch size limited so as to be able to reach out to each and every student in the classroom. I mean, when I launched CPLC in December 2002, my batch size was 15 students. And at that time, it was basically kept at 15, saying that, even if I just glance around looking at all the students in the classroom, I will be able to make out whether a student has understood what I'm saying, not understood, comfortable, not comfortable, all of those things. So personalized education was the core, was the motto with which CPLC was born. What I realized from my first year to the second year, okay, uh, in my first year, I had 35 students. In the second year, that became about 150 students. But what really helped me uh, change from 35 to 150 is the fact that when students who were passing out or who were moving out of the institute passed on the feedback to others, saying that we got our money's worth. Okay, it was a good experience. It was, it would always give me a lot of happiness when I would see the expression change on the face of a student who was struggling to kind of understand things, and when that the expression changed to happiness or satisfaction that okay, now I've understood it and now I can manage this. That is what actually drove me for many years, and I would say even today that is the one thing that will drive me really. What is really critical in my opinion is the student should get the feeling that you really care about him or her. Then the student will put in all that kind of effort.
Because of technology today, a good teacher can reach many more people.
Yes.
Also, students can compare teachers with, like today I have access to the best professors in the best universities in the world. All courses are available online, and I can compare that teacher with my school teacher, my college teacher. Also, there is so much information available. So if as a teacher you are saying something and which seems not quite right, I can just in the class Google it and see whether this person is saying something that is actually right or no, or that even you don't even know the right answer to this particular question. So
Yes.
how can teachers adapt in this really changing environment where students are discovering technology and the unlimited uses of those, and also the fact that you can potentially get compared with other teachers? As a teacher, how would you adapt yourself?
Something that has always existed in the corporate field is actually now coming into this whole education space also, and it is survival of the fittest. It is extremely important for the teacher to be very, very well prepared. Okay, and if the student has all the information available, so does the teacher. There are counter questions, there are counter arguments. So the whole environment of teaching is actually moving from a one-way communication, a monologue where the teacher is talking and the student is listening, to more of a discussion in the classroom. And believe me, this discussion is very healthy, not just for the student, but also for the teacher.
Sports is something that you've taken up as a professional endeavor now. And I think table tennis specifically, I mean, I've seen all the achievements of your daughter, who's been, making the country proud, winning tournaments all across the world. So tell us about this new, part of your professional career. What is it that you do?
My daughter started playing table tennis, participating in tournaments and so on at her age of 8, which was 2011. And I was completely into my CPLC career at that time. It started off more as a hobby for my daughter also. But, with every passing year, we realized that she is doing very well. When my daughter wanted to go all out and pursue sports, not compromising on education or not giving up education, but focusing a little more on sports, we said, why not? And we supported her completely. And over a period of time, my daughter actually changed my career. I mean, when she kept moving from one stage to another, I realized that, there is so much more that I can do to support her in her budding sports career. And that is where I started spending a lot of time in the field of sports management. We have started looking at sports which maybe are not so popular today, and what are the ways and means of popularizing the non-popular sports. The other thing is how can we bring in professionalism in the way sports is being managed, or sports is being run, or in the way training is being done. So what we are also trying to do is what kind of professional training can be implemented within India, or what kind of changes can be made in the way training is imparted across a variety of sports. And that's where a lot of work is happening for me personally today.
So, sir, you obviously agreed to be a coach for our community and be a mentor. So, for people who are watching this, who do you think can benefit by doing a program with you? Who do you think you can help the most?
So Ankit, if you look at my experience, I have had a few years of corporate experience from a technology company to a multinational bank and so on. Most of my time has been spent in the education industry, more than 20 years now. I have trained students to get into the top B schools for a large part of my career now. So anyone who wishes to maybe pursue MBA, definitely, I mean, that's the easiest for me really, because I've done that for so many years. You know, I have actually spoken to a lot of students and parents. For example, after 10th, the most common dilemma is whether to take science or commerce or arts and so on. After 12th, what kind of courses that can be taken up, or after graduation, what kinds of career options exist, whether you should get into a management career immediately or after a few years of experience. So been through all of that for many years. Also, I have done a lot of very different kinds of things in my career, taken risks. Students are also kind of, you know, thinking about many different kinds of things, or students are thinking about, uh, you know, what are the various things that I can do, I can get into, what are meaningful career options, and so on and so forth. I think I can help out students or people who've just completed their education and started working and maybe are looking at some kind of a career shift, and how to decide what career shift and all of those things. I mean, I have genuinely always believed in not telling a student what to do, but engaging in a discussion with a student and helping the student realize what is best for him or her. Because genuinely, I believe in the fact that nobody can tell you what to do. Every individual is different. I can get into a discussion and help the student realize what his or her strengths are, what he or she would enjoy doing, and that would be my approach really, in terms of whether you call it counseling or mentoring or whatever you may want to call it.
Thank you so much, sir, for this. I think it was extremely insightful and helpful. Great to go through your journey, both with respect to how you got into B school, how you ran your own enterprise, and what you are doing with sports now. And absolutely thrilled to have you as a coach on our platform. So I just want to tell everyone before I sign off again that sir is one of the best coaches you could have potentially from now on until CAT day or any other exam that you are taking. And even if there are other doubts with respect to your career, I think one person that you can trust is Parag sir. So yeah, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, Ankit. It's a pleasure to be a part of this. I have always thoroughly enjoyed counseling, mentoring, helping students, and you are just helping me continue with what I love doing. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. Anybody who's interested in signing up, the link is going to be available in the description and in the comments. Please feel free to register for this anytime you want. So yeah, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Hi guys, Inside IIM has come up with an exciting new one-on-one mentorship product where you get to interact with superstar managers from different businesses, different functions. You can ask them everything around your career, your education, your future success. If you are interested, the link is in the description below. Thanks.